one of the things that we discovered is that our state representatives are not listening to us, and we can complain all day long about the feds not doing anything, but that's kind of we understand that. That's a given, it's a moot point, we can move on from there. What we did have hope of was that we could maybe reach our state representatives, and every effort has been made to appeal, demand, coerce, threaten. I mean, I'm using some strong words, but you get the point, to drive them to action. In the absence of action at the state level, that leaves the communities completely vulnerable, because what has been happening are the feds are using, through their proxies like Catholic Charities or BCFS, they're going straight into the communities. And the communities are usually the last to know, particularly the mayor and the council, or if it's in like a county jurisdiction, the county judge and the commissioners. And watching this happen, not just here in Texas, but across the United States, I realized this is coming to a town near you. You just won't know about it till it's too late to do something about it. In fact, the feds have gotten very sneaky. They're starting to use unmarked vans, unmarked buses. They are busing people into communities under the cover of darkness. I mean, everything fits the term invasion. Being facilitated by our own government human traffickers, because that is truly what they're doing. Everything that they're doing is against the law, because it's really considered one more stop in a chain of human smuggling, and they're smuggling them right into your towns and right into your cities. And you may not know about it until like what happened in Conroe, when the traffic increased around a known BCFS facility, and once 1,000 people in the front door, according to Steve Toth, about 600 out the back door, right into the community, and the traffic was increasing and picking up, and people are like, what is going on over there? That's how they find out, after the fact. So what we decided to do was, acknowledging that this is coming to a city near us, and the fact that it was already happening in towns about our size with about the same amount of resources when you're looking at taxpayer base, police enforcement, public safety. You're looking at a certain level of township, and we're about 95,000 people, give or take, so that makes us a very juicy target for the feds. And we just decided to be proactive and basically do what we were asking our state reps to do, which they wouldn't, and to lead by example. So we crafted a resolution that, a lot of people have had varying criticism. Oh, well, this is grandstanding. And I said, no, this is what fighting looks like. This is what it looks like when people at the local level have to fight back. We actually mean it, because remember that each document or statute or ordinance, resolution, or bill of law that you pass is only worth what the willpower is behind it to enforce it. We have hundreds of laws on the books we don't enforce, and that's why we're in the trouble that we're in today. So people have said, well, this doesn't have any force of law. And I said, it has as much force as we are willing to put behind it. So there were two aspects of the resolution. There's, of course, everyone familiar with resolutions knows the first part builds your case. The whereas this, the whereas that. That is what builds your case. That's where you state the facts that bolster the action you're about to take. We started out right at the top with quoting the law, the Constitution, and the fact that the feds had failed in enforcing their own laws, and that the state, by choosing not to act, that was still a decision against us by not acting. They think that by not acting they're absolved of responsibility, but in fact they're choosing the exact opposite for us and leaving our communities vulnerable. So we said that in absence of action from our state reps, this is what we choose, because League City is still, while the feds we may not any longer be a nation of laws. I think anybody would be hard pressed to make that argument. Texas is borderline, and Joanne will probably fill us in more on that the reality rarely matches the fantasy that they put out there about a deep red Texas. And so in light of that, we said, okay, barring all that, League City is still a city that respects and upholds the rule of law. Therefore, we will follow the law in League City. We will not follow the feds into lawlessness. We will not allow them to establish a midpoint or a holding point or detention center in their human trafficking scheme. And then we put some teeth into it. And the teeth basically said that we direct all of our agencies, our departments, to not cooperate with any federal directive, request, or order to establish a detention center or holding center within our jurisdiction. That gives cover to our law enforcement, to our planning and development, which Jerry can probably even speak to the costs that are coming to your local community. It's not just educational, but everything goes up. There's a little town about 20 minutes from here called Wallaceville. It's just a little township right up there by I-10. And it's, what is it, ETJ, extra? ETJ. There we go, thank you. So it's under the Harris County, and they contacted their county commissioner because there's been a BCFS facility there for 2 years, since 2012. Since it was established in this old elementary school, their property values have declined, their crime has gone up, their roads have gotten torn up, which is an indirect cost you may not consider because of the trucks, the heavy laden trucks that are coming in and out of that facility. And they have security patrol. This is interesting. For 2 years, they've had security patrols on a regular schedule around the entire elementary school property, and the people with bright lights and ATVs. And the people that live on that street are going, what is going on over there that they have security patrols around that facility? So of course that raises the fear factor. And one of the ladies contacted me when she had heard about the resolution, and she said, we've already told our county commissioner, and he said that Judge Ed Emmett of Harris County, county judge, said, we will not touch one of these resolutions with a 10-foot pole. Don't even bring it up to me. We will not even look at it. And his resistance was so strong, it made me wonder what she had, what was really going on over there that required that kind of resistance and that kind of obscurity. So the resolution passed with some pushback. Ironically, the pushback came from a lot of Muslims that didn't appreciate that I mentioned radical Islamic terror groups in there. And we're going to start seeing some fallout from that because CARE is involved, and y'all are familiar with CARE. And CARE is now financing a Muslim to run in our campaign for election coming up in November. So I'm going to request right here and now that every prayer warrior in this room, this is not just about a city election. I want you to know that this is going to be ground zero for a battle between right and wrong and good and evil. I truly believe that that's what this is when CARE gets involved. CARE is pro-Hamas, pro-terrorist. They are justifying and rationalizing everything that's happening in Israel right now. And I'm going to ask for your prayer so that League City will not be deceived into voting for someone because of the amount of money that CARE might throw into this race. And I also want to ask that our city council remain strong in the conviction of what we passed in that resolution. I don't want the resolution to be derailed by one word, but I also don't want to bend to the bullying tactics of CARE either. And we have, not us, present company excluded, but there are others on the city council that are going to need those prayers to bolster their strength. So keep us in your prayers for that, and I will pass the microphone. I'll ask there any questions you want about the resolution. And
we hold the questions until after all three is spoken.
Okay, who wants to go next? All right.
I'd like to just add a little bit of that. Heidi touched on what this is going to cost to your cities. The cost of this is unknown. They think it's unknown. However, we do know how much it's going to cost. It's going to cost a great deal of money. It's going to cost in time and in citizens. It's going to be an effect on our health care. Our schools are oblivious. Our school district is oblivious to what this is going to be. These people coming in have got to be educated. There's a lot of issues that are involved with this. The state requires that these children be spoken to in their native language. Well, now we know that it's not just Mexican, that there's other languages involved too. So now we're going to have to provide people who speak these languages as well. But one thing I'd like to share with you recently, this is something you can do. This conference today is to tell you something you can do. I want you to go home and talk to everybody you can. I'm in therapy, not this kind of therapy, not this kind. I probably need both, though, for running for city council. Anyway, I'm sitting there, with this lady twice a week, and we're doing therapy on my hand, and while I'm talking to her. And she's a resident of League City as well, and I'm telling her some of the things that are going on. And she said to me the other day, I've had 7 sessions, she said to me the other day, she said, "You have made an impact on my life. What you are telling me and the thing I never knew. I never knew the things you're telling me." And I just sit there and I'm, did you know, talk to people in line, tell them, anybody you can. I recently went and talked to a pastor that had come to our city council meeting when we passed that resolution, and he sent me an email that was somewhat negative, so I stopped and talked to him the other day. We spent an hour. I said, I just want you to know where this resolution came from. This is our thinking. This is what's going on. And I think we had a very good talk, and I said, would you please share what I'm telling you to your congregation? If you can't do it, I'd be more than happy to do it, or bring my backup with me to talk to you. Talk to everybody you know, every situation. Every time you get a few minutes to talk, tell them what's going on. People are not aware. They're not getting the information reliably or from TV, or that's all slanted. Tell them the truth. Tell them what's going on. You all here know what's going on. Share those stories. Thank you.
Just one thing really quick. One of the things that will catch their attention, we just had this happen in League City. An illegal alien was noted driving erratically and without his lights at night. Well, they didn't know he was an illegal alien. I'm telling you up front, he was. The Dickinson police, just south of League City, lit him up to pull him over. He took off. He was 24 years old from Mexico. He took off and reached speeds in excess of 100 miles an hour. And he raced from Dickinson into League City, and a family of 4 was turning into they were 1 block from their house. They were coming home from the laundromat, and he plowed into them at 100 miles an hour, instantly killing 6 people. And the police said to me that in the car, they said in 21 years of law enforcement, I've never seen an accident this bad, and high speeds will do that. But the people that were, the family of 4 in the car, there was nothing below their waist. He said it's nothing like he's ever seen. That was 6 people. This is, if Maria Espinoza-Ling were here, she would talk to you about the lives that are lost to those who are here illegally. That death count will mount, and it will continue to mount. Is she here? Tim is here. Oh, there's Tim. Hi. And that's something, too, that is connecting at a local level, because everybody is aware when that happens at the local level, and that's a place where you can connect right there, because the tragedy is compounded by the fact that it could have been and should have been prevented up front. And that's part of the difficulty of reconciling these kind of deaths. But it's happening more and more. The media will try and suppress these stories because it doesn't fit into their narrative of how successful of an invasion this is. But it's going to happen more and more, and it will be happening in your towns and your counties. And you have to be the conduit to get that information out.
Thank you. Let's go back to the schools a minute. Head count is what matters to a lot of the education bureaucrats. And I've already read a few of the responses in the media and Texas media about what some of the school superintendents have already said, that this doesn't trouble them any. And let me tell you why it doesn't. Because they're looking at the head count. When the head count goes up, they have more dollars coming in. And if they are foreign speaking and you have to provide additional resources for a foreign language, then they get additional money for that. So while we're sitting here looking at the cost in terms of our culture, the challenges in our culture, in our schools, our teachers, let me make really clear to you all, there has been no meeting that we have been able to determine of your state officials sitting down around a table with your education commissioner and your health commissioner and everybody getting a long-range plan together. Now, part of that is driven by the fact that, one, you know, it's like everybody's hoping that it just goes away. The second thing is the federal government is making it very, very hard to get information because nobody really knows how many of these UACs have been transported around Texas or around the United States for that matter. You know, you will see all the time governors and mayors on TV that are saying, I had no idea. They just showed up, plane loads, bus loads. So let me bring that down to the bottom line for you all. And this is an issue that is hard to get across to some of your local officials and some of your state officials because, unfortunately, we are so woefully ignorant of the United States Constitution that when you start raising these issues, they look at you like you came from Neptune. So let me explain to you, whenever the federal government comes into your state or your community, and they don't ask you, and they don't tell you, and they don't sit down with officials to negotiate an interlocal agreement whereby your local taxpayers are made whole, that's called commandeering of assets. And I will remind you all that the United States government is prohibited from commandeering of state and local assets because the state and local government is we the people. They are commandeering our assets and invading our sovereignty. And that is only allowed when there's been an official declaration of war or a time of national emergency. So what we have is local officials and state officials are just sitting back going, well, you know, master federal government, I guess I guess we're just going to have to take this. And you know, the rowdy people in this room, just sort of the freedom-loving people, just reject that idea. Because we're folks have started down a very slippery slope. So when I talk to local and state officials about that, I ask them this question. When is it going to be enough? When will it be enough? Will it be enough when every single empty building in all 254 counties in the state of Texas is full of illegal aliens? Is that when it's going to be enough? Because let me tell you, we're seeing reports from sheriffs, and I've got a letter that hasn't really been made public yet. I gave it to some of our friends in Breitbart, Texas, and I think they're looking into it. But I'm going to share some information with y'all from that. But the teachers are not being told what is coming their way. They have no idea what is going to arrive in their classrooms. And, you know, not to take away from the humanitarian approach to this, but there are cultural issues here that our teachers are ill prepared to deal with. Some of these children are not used to a modern society culture. They don't know the ways that you behave in certain situations, and so it's going to be very, very challenging for them. The illnesses we've already touched on. So at the schools, we don't know how many are coming, but there are already some estimates out there that it could cost the people of Texas between $45 and $70 million a year for just the education. So you all understand that? I mean, did you sign up, anybody in here sign up for that? Did you sign up for that? I didn't sign up for that. So the question is, who signed us up? And the better question is, where are state officials that are saying the people of Texas didn't sign up for this? Okay, now on the issue of indigent health care, let me explain to you, those of y'all who don't know how that works in your local counties, and it works different ways. Some of the counties have public health hospitals. Some just have an indigent health care program that is administered by a hospital, and you have an interlocal agreement with your county. But you need to understand this. The state of Texas does not screen out illegals. Now, I heard yesterday from a state rep, and I thought my head was going to fly right off, because he's been in the state legislature a heck of a long time, and he should know better, but he's going to soon know better, because I'm going to make sure that he gets educated on this. But they access health care beyond the emergency room through the indigent health care programs. And if you're and the state does not screen them out. In other words, they don't require that you prove legal status to access those health care programs. And by the way, in some counties, that includes abortions. And it includes prescriptions for medicines that you and I would not readily want. Recreational medicine, let me just say that. Prescriptions that you and I would not want to pay for. I know that because as a former county commissioner, recovering elected official, we had to deal with that. And when we found out the kinds of prescriptions that our local taxpayers were paying for, we said, no, thank you very much. We won't be paying for these. So if your county requires that higher screening to screen out anyone who does not have legal status, then you will get a letter from the state of Texas saying, well, guess what? You don't get state funds for this, to which when I was on the bench, we said, well, thank you very much, because we'll take care of it, but we are going to screen, it's not right. So that's a way that they access the social safety net. And it runs up the cost of Medicaid. It is something called emergency Medicaid. We spent $231 million on emergency Medicaid last year. This is before we've had this surge. So, so the state rep that said they absolutely do not access anything beyond public schools and emergency health care. And I was just going, really? Well, what do you think emergency health Medicaid is for? Because just think, common sense would lead you down to this conclusion. Okay, if you fit the eligibility requirements for Medicaid, that's the regular program. So why would we need the emergency part? It's because you're not a citizen, you don't have legal status. On the issue of county jails, I know a lot more about how county jails have to operate than I care to, and it's not because I've ever been in one as an inmate. It's because our county struggled with having to deal with building a new jail, and I've been on numerous jail committees, and so I know how the Texas Jail Commission works. So this is what happens in your jails. If you have state inmates in your jail, just say an illegal alien is being held on a state charge, in your state jail. Until they have gone through the legal process, they're going to be in your jail, and the state's not going to pay you a dadgum thing for that. Okay? Your local taxpayers pay for that. Even if it's a citizen in your jail that has been brought up on state charges, has gone through your local process, and is being held for X number of days until the pen packs and all that are ready to go to a state facility, the state doesn't immediately pull up to the door as soon as they've gone through the court process and have been sentenced to time in a state jail facility. The local taxpayers pay for that. And so you don't get reimbursed for that. So you're already paying more than just your fair share for a local inmate incarceration. Y'all understand that? And included in that is the health care for the inmates. Because you do understand that if you have an illegal in your jail and they're being held on a state charge and they have cancer, if they're being treated for cancer, if they are on kidney dialysis, if it's a pregnant woman that has a difficult pregnancy, you, the people, pay for all of that. Now, if you have smart local officials, they will find a way to qualify them for the best possible rates. That would be your Medicaid rates. But if you don't have really aggressive people on your commissioner's court that are making sure you're getting the very best rate for those inmate medical costs, you're paying a ton of money. You'll be shocked at the bills that you pay for people that are incarcerated. So that's another way that works. The ICE program. If your local entity does not participate in the 287G program, and most don't, the state of Texas doesn't participate in the 287G program, which is whenever an illegal comes to the local jail, you call up ICE and they come get them within 48 hours. And your local officials participate in enforcing immigration law. That means if you're participating in 287G program, that means that the federal government has trained your local officials to enforce immigration law. Very, very few localities do that. Now I'm going to hop over here to this Sheriff's Association letter. The reason that I got this is that our sheriff knows how passionate we are about this, and he feels the same way. And they just had the Sheriff's Association of Texas, one of their annual meetings in San Antonio. And this letter is dated July the 29th. And this is because, we heard a little bit this morning about agencies working together. Well, I can tell you that the Sheriff's Association of Texas don't believe that they've been involved in this conversation. Now, there are some border sheriffs that have been involved, but we all know that sheriffs all over this state are having to deal with the issue because they are having illegals dropped off in their counties. Some of you probably saw the Kerr County sheriff that was on News 5 in the area that said that he had a couple of deputies that came in to him and were asking to work overtime. And he said, why? And he said, well, because we have had a group, there's a camp that's set up, and it's between 500 and 700 illegals. UACs, a majority of them. And he said, nobody asked me, nobody told me, they just dropped them off in my county, and now I'm expected to provide security and safety for them. Yes, Kerr County. It was just outside of Kerrville. Just outside. Yes, yeah. So anyway, okay, to the letter. They state here, the problem is the number of persons seeking asylum inside the Texas-Mexico border is overwhelming local, state, and federal agencies and presents security implications that are far-reaching. Now I'm just going to skip through some of this. It says, however, the singular focus on humanitarian issues is creating vulnerabilities which are being exploited and represent both real and growing threats to our national security. Now, these are your sheriffs. They're more on the same page with us than you might imagine. We know that transnational gangs have been responsible for trafficking the people who now appear on our borders, exploiting and harming them along the way. This is unacceptable. We cannot allow transnational gangs to continue profiting from their criminal enterprise. We know that transnational criminal activity does not stop at our borders. Transnational criminals actively exploit the surge of human migration along our borders to conduct illicit activities without consequence. Without consequence. You do know that in some of these counties, the district attorneys are not even bringing state charges, even if it's on drugs. In some counties, it's because it's more profitable for them to look the other way, if you get my drift. And in other cases, it's because they simply do not have the funds. it says, these are the positions of the Sheriff's Association. Our state and nation must develop strategies to effectively and efficiently deal with current security issues and future security implications. They go on to say that we demand our state and federal governments fulfill their responsibility to clarify the policy to us. Their positions regarding immigration, asylum seekers, refugees, and resettlement procedures. The current lack of communication is unacceptable. The effects of unfunded requirements stemming from policy decisions has significant impact on our ability to execute our constitutional and jurisdictional responsibilities to secure our citizens' safety and quality of life. By understanding policy implications related to immigration and border security, members of the Sheriff's Association will be able to contribute to the success of state and national policies dealing with current and future security issues. We support the concept of a unified team and expect our government leaders to make efforts to connect, communicate, and collaborate. We advocate developing a statewide process to facilitate responses by local law enforcement agencies to satisfy exigent circumstances which exceed the capability of a single local law enforcement agency. Right there, they're telling you that they will help you. If you need help, you tell us what you need. If you're communicating with us, we will try to help you. We advocate support by the state of Texas to seek ways to remove liability issues. Now, this is a key issue here for local law enforcement as we move into the state legislative process. They need support from the state to remove liability issues that would otherwise preclude the desired degree of cooperation and collaboration among local law enforcement agencies. So they go on to talk about how important it is to have a unified position on this, and it's signed by Gregg County President of the Sheriff's Association, Maxie Serliano. Now, I'm going to wind down here by telling you, and I do this everywhere, and I've told DPS I'm the best PR person they never had to pay for. The Department of Public Safety has 2 documents on their website, and if you have not read these, you need to look at these. This one is the 2014 Gang Assessment Report. If you just Google Texas Department of Public Safety Gang Assessment, it'll come up. This one was released in April of this year. There's another one, a longer one, that's the Threat Assessment Overview that goes into a lot of detail about the cartels. Why is that important? It's important because you will see that the problem with the cartels and the transnational gangs didn't just happen. And as I tell people as I go across the state, you need to read these reports because most of your elected officials have never read them. I meet them all the time who don't even know these reports exist. I submit to you that until you know what the real threat that we face with a wide open border, you cannot begin to understand what the people are asking for. The people are asking elected officials to do to take their oath of office and to fulfill their constitutional responsibility to protect the life, liberty, and property of the people of Texas. And so if you don't know what the threats are and you don't know the challenges to law enforcement, how can you make the decisions that you make? The thing that will scream out in your brain as you read these is, how did we get here? I'm telling you, I get angry, y'all know me, I get upset about the profligate spending in Austin, the waste of money, and then we have, let me just go ahead and say it for the camera, Joe Strauss is sitting there nickeling and diming. I mean, we have got, all of a sudden we're concerned about how much something cost in the state capitol. So we've got this committee that is causing DPS to spend an enormous amount of time accounting for every single penny spent on the surge. My. That kind of interest in spending, I don't know where it was the last 2 sessions we were down there because we spend a heck of a lot of money on stuff the state shouldn't be doing in the first place. I submit to you that the safety and security of the people of Texas is what they are there for. So if you're elected, I would ask you to have them read this, and it would even do your local officials good to read this because they will know the challenges that law enforcement in your local communities face. Because, my friends, the cartels have networks set up all over this state. All over this state. And so it's important for us to know and to be able to articulate this to our elected officials because I have to tell you, we need to embark on an education process in rapid order before January gets here.